So today we are joined with Novruz Javadov, the co-founder of Darts Games and creator of game Do No Harm. So Novruz, if you can say a couple of things about you, about everything before we start talking about the game.
Sure. Hey, first of all, thanks for having me. And we have been working on the game for the past year. And we had this plan of making a spooky doctor in a spooky town kind of game at first, and like throughout the year it has changed quite a while, but that's where we ended up. And we have the demo up, and it will stay up probably after the release as well, but don't quote me on that because that might change. The game is coming out on March 6th, and I hope you guys try it and let me know what do you think about it. We'll plan to keep releasing updates and stuff to make it better when like after the release as well.
Yeah, because we've seen the Discord channel, people are coming up with some amazing features. Are any of those features really resonating with you that you want to address like now?
I mean, right now, no, because it's just like it's less than 4 days until release, and to be honest, for the past like 2, 3 weeks, we probably should have even stopped earlier. But for the past 2 weeks, we're not like introducing any new features, just bug fixes, trying to get all the events done. Like for the past month, we've been mostly focusing on the new like narrative events just to make it all cohesive and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where our focus has been, and we are collecting all the feedback we're getting and also all the cool ideas that people I just love how passionate some of our fans are and the ideas they come up with. But we haven't analyzed them, to be honest, like how they fit into the gameplay. And also like a lot of ideas are cool, but we also need to take into consideration how difficult they are to implement, because the core of the gameplay is already in there, and
Mm-hmm.
making like huge drastic changes is going to be like take a while. So right now we have our hands like busy, so we haven't delved too deep into the all the feature ideas and stuff. But hopefully after release, especially if the release goes well, we are definitely planning. We're planning to have an update in a month or so, like probably closer to like end of April, maybe like beginning of May.
Mm-hmm.
So by that time, I think like we will get to like implementing new features and stuff. I also want to give like the team a little bit of a break, because for the past year we've been working like tirelessly on this, and I think like for especially for the last month, like we try to avoid crunches as much as possible. But sometimes, like especially like this week, it's been incredibly hard. So I want to give the team like a little bit of break after the game releases, and maybe like we probably stay like 1 week more, like just like full ready in the alarm mode to fix like all the bugs we don't notice. But after that, we're probably getting a little bit of a break, and then we're coming back like end of March, beginning of April, and focusing back on the game and making it better.
Okay, that's amazing that you can implement this kind of work-life balance. So then after release you can have some free time. But this actually like leads us into like one of the first questions. So how do you balance your creative vision with players' expectation? And at what point in testing do you decide that the game is good enough to release?
Okay, so first we so when we come up with an idea, we have this core in mind that we want to deliver to the players. And originally for this game, it was patients would come to you, you would identify their diseases, you would treat them. That was the core idea, and I think the core idea stayed the same. The difference was it was more simplified before, so no humor wheels that is really making things like hard for some people. But instead, it was just you look at the book, you base forward answer in the book. Like you give this medicine, that's it. Maybe you do some a little bit of crafting or mixing, but that was it. And when we play tested that, we found out that like it gets a little like even right now we're getting like a lot of reviews saying the game is boring, but like back then it would like we would get that much more because there would be like very little investigation. You would always be able to find the correct answer if you were just uh like patient enough, and if you were I forgot the word in English, but like you would basically, if you notice the pattern, right,
Mm-hmm.
you would always find the exact, like 100% you always know the right answer as long as you spend enough time. And we didn't like that idea as much, so we switched a little bit to a place where there would be um, I don't want to use the word randomness because that wasn't what we were going for, but more like educated guesswork, where
Mm-hmm.
you would have hints, but then you would need to develop on those hints, like a detective game a little bit. And so like you would need to look out for the feed, like you would basically administer a dose, so like the way it works right now, and then you look out for the feedback. So, going back to your question, is how we balance the creative vision with player expectations. Is we do a lot of playtests. We do public playtests. We do like private. Obviously, we start with like in-house playtest, and we move into a little bit more of like event-based playtest. So we had like an event back home here in Baku, Azerbaijan, called Game Summit. That helped us a lot. And then I was invited to an event in Malta where I could pitch to publishers, and they had this place where you could also have your game played by like people in Malta, mostly kids. A lot, like one kid beat the game like twice and then was keeping like coming back and not letting others play. So that was like very exciting and fun to see. But I also learned a lot by simply watching how people behave, how they interact with the game. Like Discord feedback is great, but it doesn't compare obviously to what you get at the event, where you just see people like what they struggle with, like what do they try to click on, and everyone behaves very differently. So the way we do it, basically, again going back, like play tests, and also trying to identify like who is our core group, because like at the events and even during playtests, you sometimes get people that aren't exactly players who would buy your game, and
Yeah.
I mean, we can't make the games that will be pleasing to everyone. Even right now, we're like at 75% of like positive reviews, I think. And there are a lot of people who, for example, complain about the timing, but then there are people who like that challenge. And it's very hard to balance that. So we're trying our best. And there's also the time management on our side, because the game needs to be like, at the end of the day, like I need to pay salaries to our employees, and we all need to like earn a living somehow from this. So the game needs to be finished at some point, and that's why we just have this deadlines in mind. We look at like the playtesters' feedback, and then we go back to what the game originally was, and try to balance all those things out. It's kind of like playing a game in itself, Like
Yeah.
I'm playing this sort of a strategy game where I need to balance all these resources, and it's just you do it in real life, and there's no like a UI bar above my head telling me like how numbers change. So it's like an unintuitive game, but like it is all worthwhile. Like I said, when you see the like that kid in Malta who would like keep coming and playing the game, or when you see like how much excitement there is in Discord, that is what makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. That's when you see people lively interact with your game is like worth more than even 1,000 messages on Discord, because then you can actually see that the game loop is working properly, and that people are actually engaged with the title. So as you meant that you're from Azerbaijan, how was your cultural background influenced the game's development and themes?
So, I wouldn't say cultural background would. I mean, maybe it had like some impact as like that I can't really notice because I'm kind of here. But I would say the biggest impact was like our location, because the industry isn't really developed here. There are very few teams here that are like working professionally. I would count only like five, including ours, and most of us work like outsource and other stuff like to sustain ourselves. There's no like big break like success from the countries that would like make people interested in the country and stuff. And even the game summit event that I mentioned, it was like it's a very new thing that is happening for us.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm bringing leading this up to is that like the industry is very small, and we are all very inexperienced when it comes to actually, like making games professionally. It's not like the industry in our country has been here for 20 years. It's not like even in Poland, like, where you have CD Projekt Red, where you have 11-bit, and those companies, just by being there, by being that big, they kind of elevate everyone,
Mm-hmm.
because CD Projekt Red can spend money to hire people and then to train them. And then maybe, I don't know how it's in Poland, but like I'm just assuming maybe some of them go on to open up their own like uh well, what is the word, like game studios, or like just do indie games and stuff. And like that kind of it brings innovation, it brings money in, and like we lacked all of that. So like that's the biggest problem, I think, with our location, is we're very far away from everyone. And like even like going to games, like I went to Gamescom and GDC last year, and to me they were like it was amazing because I learned so much from it, but it all was also very expensive. Like uh just simply going there was like a big cut in our budget. But like the main reason I went like to Malta or to Gamescom, or at least to get publishers, for example, and because we're hoping for this infusion of cash to like keep the studio going, so we don't have to go back to outsource and stuff. But also, like, I'm there, I attend talks, I talk with other people, I network, and I learn a lot. Like, one of the things I keep saying to like game developers here is that like just weird example, but like, let's say you know how to count to like 10, but nobody has ever taught you that there's like numbers beyond 10, that there's
Mm-hmm.
11, 12, 13, and 100 and stuff. And so because nobody has ever mentioned that even to you, you don't even think about that. You just stop. Like, for you, perfection is 10, when for the whole world the perfection is, I don't know, like 1,000, 10,000 and stuff. But you will never learn about it because there's nobody leading you to that.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, I think, what affected us. And we ended up like, and like when it comes to like the game mechanics and choices we had to make, I think like the reason, like, for example, we're right now at 75% positive reviews instead of like 90 plus, is because we lack that experience. Like we it's I like we don't have like a person who has specialized in balancing like game economy, that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the big complaints, is like, hey, I ran out of resources a lot, like, because we're kind of experimenting here. We are trying our best. Like, obviously there are books on it that we have read. There are like YouTube videos that we have watched. There's like, again, like I said, like GDC talk and stuff. But like those things can only teach you so much. They just let you know that there's numbers, like that, like there exists a new world outside, but you have to experience them yourself. And you have to, like, every game is unique. Every game balance is unique. It's not like there's a direct formula, or at least I don't know of a direct formula that you could just like put into in our game and it would all work perfectly. So that's where I'm leading up. Like, a lot of mechanic choices were influenced by our location, by the fact that we're so far away from everyone, and by the fact that we are the pioneers in like local game industry. So
Mm-hmm.
we're making a lot of mistakes. We're cutting a lot of corners, but our main goal was always to try to make the game as interesting as possible. Like, and that also leads like to the culture effect, that like I tell, like, every time we get a negative review, my developers, they get frustrated, like, because they're trying their hardest and they obviously know that like you can't please everyone, but every negative review affects us in a bad way. But at the same time, I keep telling them that, like, guys, hey, this is like the first game that we're publishing. The fact that we're publishing is already a huge success. The fact that we're doing it alone, like self-publishing, because we didn't manage to get any publishers
Mm-hmm.
involved. Like, because for a lot of them, we were also risk like a team from a country where they don't have like that much of an experience, and it's their first games that they're releasing, and they already had games that they didn't manage to release. So we were a risk, and nobody like wanted to take that risk with us, so we had to do it ourselves. And that's where like that's basically how the location impacts us. Culture wise, I wouldn't say like Lovecraft and stuff isn't really popular in Azerbaijan, so it's not like we took those ideas, because even right now, like we have a lot of wish lists. Like Nexus was very helpful, and the game I think is like staying popular enough. Like we have around 200 players like online constantly in the game. Like it falls down like 200 and then climbs back up. But the game is very popular, and that was like our main goal is like we were trying to sell this to like Western markets, because that's where the money is at. Like we have around 80,000 wish lists, but out of those only I don't know, like 200 is from Azerbaijan, because
Mm-hmm.
even the gaming, it's not just like game devs that is weak here. Even the gamers, they play either, like a lot of people obviously play mobile games because that's the easiest thing to play, but
Yeah.
also the PC gamers, they play like huge games. They play GTA, I don't know, they play Counter Strike, League of Legends, Dota, like basically AAA games, and they're not interested that much in a local indie game. So like that's why our goal was immediately to make a game that would be interesting, not in Azerbaijan, but like globally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Whenever you like try to design a game, the target audience with any kind of content is quite important. So your shift to the Western market is an amazing idea, and definitely it pays off. Especially when you see like people from Spain, from Poland, from Portugal trying to chip in with like the ideas of translations, and even approaching you with, okay, I'll help you with the translation, you don't need to pay me, I just want to like be part of the game. So that actually like thanks to the internet and stuff are just giving us as developers, as studios, the possibility to like broaden our scope. um
That has like that was completely unexpected for me, and like that has been amazing. That like we're getting, like you said, like, and I try to like everyone who helps, I try to pay them, but obviously like the reason we didn't localize in all languages we can is again budget reasons. And like it's amazing that there are fans who are, like you said, like want to just be a part of the game. And you yourself like helped us with like a tool that I think will be very like we're gonna keep using for a long history in our company, if we keep going, obviously. But the translators and like the interest, especially from Poland and Brazil, was like much more than we expected, and that is amazing to see. Yes.
Okay. I mean, we'll still stick to the idea. So you've mentioned that first you wanted to make a medical simulator with some kind of creepy vibe. So when the infusion of the Lovecraftian theme appeared and was implemented to do no harm.
So originally we didn't want to go full Lovecraftian because we were being told by publishers, like there are a lot of Lovecraftian games coming out in Steam, and like part of the reason it's a trend is because it's popular. Like people love Lovecraft. People love like to feel like in that story, because like the fear of unknown, the isolation, and having like it's all very relatable, and that is the reason why the genre kind of got so popular. And there have been like a lot of games that has come out in the past year like in that theme. So we were being told that like, hey, maybe like kind of dip there, but don't go full Lovecraft in the beginning. And that's what we tried to do, like with anomalies and stuff. And even our creatures, like they weren't exactly like the moss creature. It is inspired. It's Cthulhu-esque, but it's not like exactly Lovecraftian. But then the more we were developing the world, especially when we brought like our lead narrative designer in, like we understood that like, hey, there's really no, like the world is so inspired by it that like there's no reason to like not fully delve into it. And that's when we changed the story like a little bit to have be this like proxy war, like between Cthulhu and Azak, like um that you will never see in the game. And like even like it's gonna be so in the Lovecraftian kind of theme, like it has to be subtle. Like we can't just be like, hey, this is Tohu, this is Azak, they're fighting, and you're just I mean some games can pull that off, but like ours, especially like with how it's designed and how patients keep coming. And like the idea is that like you shouldn't know that you're stuck in this village, and that you're stuck in this paranormal, like, with all this Lovecraftian events happening around you. So it all should come like a little bit slowly. We experimented with how fast we want the player to get that. When like nothing happens in day one, like people feel a little bit bored. So we wanted to like have a little bit hints, and then it goes on. But basically, when we brought our narrative lead narrative designer in, like we went full on Lovecraft, because from the get go we were kind of like heavily inspired by it and using it, but then we thought like why not just delve straight into it.
Okay, yeah, and especially that me as a massive fan of Lovecraftian themes in games, I really appreciate like the small like bits and nods to the Lovecraftian mythos. So when you see like those kind of drawings on the pillar within the intro scene, the Nairla patients referring to Hotep and stuff, it actually like resonates very well with people who are very into this topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like at first we were just like not using all of that and keeping it all a little bit like, hey, yes, there's like this mysterious island and something happens. But then we realized that like there like you like for fans like you, it would be better if we don't like still remain subtle, but have like actual things that like have actual references basically. Like that would be a stronger message, and it would lead to more engagement and interest.
Hmm. So
And it
in
would, and to be honest, like it would also make the story like it made the story feel whole. Like that was the main reason, because at first we were a little bit too afraid to go in there, and because of that the story was kind of okay, there's a ritual happening, but like what exactly is it? But now that we utilize like we could have made fleshed out that story, but that would have taken a long time, and we obviously are not that good of a writers as Lovecraft was. So we like using Lovecraft mythology like to help us. That was basically the fundament, like the on which we built
Mhm.
the game. And
Okay, now we'll go to a bit of the mechanics. So in my previous video, I told like one of the main things that you can see in the Lovecraftian inspired games is the sanity system. So how does the sanity system affect the player character in your game? And are there any other ways of treating it except for the laudanum that you received in, I think, day 4?
I mean, mechanics wise, currently there is no other way. You kind of make a risk of whether like you need to use it or not use it. Sometimes you just need to accept the fact that like you're gonna lose a little bit of sanity. As long as you like balance it all out, like you will be able to survive and just go throughout your like daily routines of like healing patients and stuff. Overall, like the idea was like basically first of all like atmosphere wise, vibe wise, like sanity is a big part of always like of this. Hey, I'm alone in this creepy village. Like I stay at my house almost all of the time, and then there's not really like the game doesn't show you what goes beyond. So like you start to lose your mind slowly. Like I think that would make total sense. And specifically gameplay wise, like we were like we brainstormed for a long time on how specifically are we going to introduce this sanity mechanic. And maybe we could have made a better choice, but like what we end up going with is simply an anomalies that happen around you that you need to find. And if you don't catch them, we were inspired a little bit by like the game Exit 8.
Mm-hmm.
uh it's a very cool, like it's, I always compare that game like to old newspaper like puzzles where you would see like two pictures and you would just need to find the differences between them.
Yeah.
But like it's in 3D, and like it's more fleshed out and you can move around and stuff. So we are like in our like very very early on we also wanted to have like this inscription like movement around the room, and the house was bigger and there were more puzzles and stuff, but that ended up feeling more like escape room, and it also was a lot of content for us to fill in.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted like, hey, you're kind of stuck behind the table and you experience the world this way. Patients come to you. You don't really move around, and similarly, you can change the camera angle. You can look left, you can look right, you can look down. And when you do that, you also need to be a little bit cautious. You need to look for stuff, weird stuff that is going on, and that's how you will be like that is how you will end up staying sane. Like I said in the beginning, like because of our inexperience, maybe we for the certain balance issues we have with Laudanum, where you run out of it too early and stuff. But we have definitely heard that feedback, and we are for the demo. It was a little bit too late to change anything, but for the release, we have tweaked some numbers around, and hopefully that will be less frustrating.
I mean, yeah, definitely. The bigger test sample, then the more feedback you get, and you can adjust those stuff. But to be honest, playing the demo like a month ago, and now I see like a massive difference in the way how everything plays. I've noticed like the small flares that there's something crawling over there. There's something happening around there. So actually, staying within this one spot is like what you've got in the description, that is medical papers please. So you've got this fun feeling, and as you said, like if you would want to like move around the your office, then it would definitely like contribute somehow to the game loop, which then may not be as engaging as this kind of like getting proficient as a doctor and applying all of those remedies.
Mhm.
Tell me how the reputation system influence interactions with villages and the overall storyline, because like do they change the way how you talk, how they talk to you, or there's any other things that the player may experience?
So that is right. I mean again, like the scope creep. I don't know if you've heard the term, but
Oh,
the
definitely.
game, yeah, the games usually have scope creep, and we already had experience with our earlier games that we didn't like, that has been keep like getting delayed because we don't have budget or like strength to finish it. But we that game was a victim of scope creep. It ended up being like much bigger, and this one, similarly, we were like aware of that, and we did everything we could to prevent it. So the villagers originally, like there would be a village, and you would be able to interact like with kind of other places a little bit as well, like not a lot. But the idea behind, like, we had this living village with like specific, very important NPCs and just simple patients here and there. So that's where reputation system kind of takes its root. But like I said, we needed to cut down and like focus more and deliver a better gameplay that way through like this medical papers, please, like you said, where you're stuck in one place. But with that in mind, the reputation system kind of prevailed, like it still is there. It changes how patients react to you, and it also changes how some valuable and like what kind of information do they bring in. Like some events are reputation based, where the player will not get a hint if they treat villagers like worse. I'm not gonna spoil the game, but like basically there are some important NPCs, like villagers, that will basically not tell you information that they otherwise would have, and
Mm-hmm.
that information could have helped you like shape the storyline better, basically to understand where you need to go with the storyline. And so that's one of the ways it will impact. The other way it's going to impact is through endings that you can reach.
Mm-hmm.
Some endings are reputation based. Like you said, some villagers, not all of them, because we already have like one thing is with dialogues is we already have a little bit of trouble with how many there are, and we all also want to deliver this experience in a lot of languages. So we have like localization, a budget in mind when we are developing dialogue. But yes, like when your reputation is like at a certain threshold, uh, patients, they react and speak to you a little bit differently. But because we like of the amount of lines we have added, maybe that doesn't like really, the game doesn't make you feel that immediately. We are planning to change that going forward. So like after the release, probably. Um, and then there is a mechanic of reputation impacting amount of money you get
Mm-hmm.
from the that is the main gameplay impact. Is the amount of money you get is dependent on the reputation you have with the villagers. So the better your reputation, the more they will pay you, and the more they will pay you, like the more easier the game. The easier the game gets because you can manage your resources more freely that way.
Okay, yeah, that was the first question I was asking if this was going to be like impacting the amount of money that you may receive for your service. So you've
For sure.
actually answered this before. What were the primary challenges in balancing the horror elements to the medical simulator aspect?
Um, so the challenges were that like we wanted to keep it to be like medical papers, please, but like in Lovecraftian world, and that part was really hard because if like even right now like with some anomalies, for example, we ended up putting like we were thinking about where we need to put them, and we had this idea of, hey, we like not all of the anomalies should be like easy to experience, like find. So some of them should be hard, but I think we went at it like a little bit wrong in the beginning. Like I said, due to inexperience, we put them in places that players don't really look. But the game isn't about that, you know. The game is more about, hey, like patient comes in, I treat them. They're specifically like I look at the book sometimes, but not always, especially when the skill ceiling kind of gets higher and you like memorize the book a little bit. You don't need to like refer to it as much. So we ended up doing like some anomalies that were very hard to notice if you don't look around all the time. But the game isn't about looking around, and the game is like a little bit time management is an issue, so we can't really have a player check everything every single time. So that was really hard. I think that was a place where we were struggling at. And like you said, like one months ago, uh anomalies were a little bit different than they are now. Even right now, I don't think they're perfect, like I said, but we have managed, I think, to make it a little bit more consistent. And now the game, and then when it comes to medical simulation aspects, so we get a lot of ideas in Discord and just in general, like Victorian era, like doctor should feel a certain way, like, you know, prescribing like currently illegal drugs back then was okay because
Mm-hmm.
people thought it was just a painkiller, right? Or sometimes they used even radiation to treat patients and stuff. So like we wanted, and then there was also, you know, like how they would like use a saw to amputate you and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So, or in the very first version of the game, we actually had some of those things. We had like we didn't have amputations because that was very hard to do like in 2D and 3D like combination styles that
Mm-hmm.
we've chosen. But we had like mini games that would like involve treatment. And the idea was like initially that like instead of Lovecraft, we're going like was, hey, like cute environment, cozy environment, and then like gross medical procedures. And even like that, a little bit of that can be like seen right now when you use the magnifying glass. Like the eyes and the mouth can be a little bit gross. It's not as gross as we like had it in mind initially. um but yeah, where I was going at was like medical simulation part. We also needed to, like, we ended up cutting out a lot of parts because they were killing the vibe. You know, they weren't like they were we were going too into like surgeon simulator of
Mm-hmm.
sorts, Victorian simulator instead of, and that was not, we wanted to have like engaging gameplay, but like in this Lovecraftian world. So we needed, so basically that was a challenge of like trying to find this balance. And to do that, we just like, I think playtests help a lot because some of the ideas we have, like I said, they sound great on paper, but when you actually implement them and when you play, like maybe they would fit perfectly in a different game, but like in this specific game where people come for a specific type of an experience, they don't kind of fit and we need to cut them out.
Yeah, definitely, because as you said that before medical world was quite different with bloodletting, leeches, and all of
Mhm.
those weird kind of procedures that doctors employed. Then this would really like have a feature creep. So you have too many
Mhm.
stuff, too much
Mhm.
stuff, and people are going to be like, okay, I need to apply this thing, that thing, then give him some medicine, and then suddenly you got one patient, and it took you like 6 hours to treat
Yeah.
every single thing because the skill involved and every single step. Then it would be unrewarding for the player.
Yes, and also I would say like maybe there was a way where we could have implemented all of that, but like I said, we are like time constraints, like in terms of the project deadline and stuff. So with the way we implemented at first didn't work with the vibe of the game, and we didn't really have a lot of time to like kind of plan it all out. So we just stick to what we see is working. So like that is a good part of the playtest. It's in addition to all the criticism, you also see like people don't tell you that like, hey, this is great. But when what we have like analytics in the game that helps us, hey, people like keep playing this part, like they don't drop out of the game at this point. So we know that like, hey, this thing at least works. Or and the leave a review before like we opened the reviews in demo. We like on the Steam page, we had like a leave a review button in the game, and like even right now in demo it's available where people like go to the forums that ask them a lot of questions, and that has also been very helpful because they're like that was actually, sorry for like going to like a different topic, but that actually helped us not helped like it helped us a lot, but it also created this uh feeling that the game was being like well liked when in reality like more people like people that would choose to leave a review on that thing were just more positively inclined, and they liked the game and they wanted to impact the game's like direction basically, and that's why they were leaving review. But then when we put the demo up on Steam, we saw that like, hey, it's not like that for everyone, and there definitely valid criticism of the game that we need to address.
Yeah, because this can go into a specific kind of fallacy. I don't remember how it's called. That basically when a person wants to leave a review, they usually enjoy it, so they give you positive feedback and everything. But people who are like not into the game or they feel dissatisfied, they want to leave a
Mhm.
review. So then you're not addressing the actual criticism because they
Mhm.
didn't want to even like write it. So this is
Mhm.
like a double-edged sword.
Mhm. Exactly.
So now, keeping on with the topic of mechanics, currently in the demo, there's the possibility to play through 7 days. Now, could you discuss the significance of the 30-day survival period and how it shapes the game's pacing?
Sure. So, the 30-day thing was like tied to lunar cycle, because that was the initial idea that we had is that like there is so the doctor is invited to this place, and like if they survive for 30 days, at the end of 30 days, there's gonna be like a red moon, and that red moon is the perfect time for the local cultists to do their rituals and stuff, and the doctor would be basically the main character involved. So that was the original idea, and that was why we stuck with the 30 days
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I think like and gameplay wise, we thought that like, hey, in 30 days we can introduce a lot of new mechanics. We can have the gameplays that is actually interesting, and we can also like for the fans, they have a lot of days to play through, and like they can like that basically. And it also allows us to like you said with feature creep. It's like you can't introduce all of the mechanics on day one. Like even right now, we're struggling with the tutorial, like explaining to people like how the game works. So 30 days allowed us to kind of to like the demo is filled with like a lot of mechanics that happen almost every day, and I think like 30 days allows us to like stretch that a little bit. Um, Again, like I'm not sure how much we like because you kind of need to balance like the thing where like the boredom that comes from doing the same thing with new mechanics. But if we introduce too many new mechanics in the beginning, it's also bad for us because then we need to keep introducing new mechanics, and then the free feature creep keeps happening. So we're stretching it out throughout the 30 days, but 30 days also helps us even mechanics wise, like narrative mechanics wise, it helps us flesh out the story without like throwing everything at the player from the get go. So it helps us like develop this. We were inspired by Papers, Please a lot, and I think like obviously Lucas Pope did a much better job, but like with small dialogue bubbles they had there. That was our main idea, and we even allowed ourselves to go a little bit beyond that and like have longer dialogues, but I loved the way like the narrative works there. That even with like a short phrases, like how much of a story the game can tell, and that was the idea here as well. So because we can't like have like a character like a priest character come in, for example, or Thomas come in and tell you like their whole story. They just come in and tell you like bits of it and bits of it, and those story parts they need to be related to the gameplay at least somewhat to feel relevant. And I think like 30 days allows us to do that. Pacing wise, like the idea is that every 2 to 3 days a new mechanic should basically be introduced, so the player doesn't feel bored. And but like the longer we go, so like at later days I think it will be less and less mechanics, because uh like we don't want one patient to take 6 hours, like you said. We just add new stuff, that basically new creatures, new anomalies, new things you need to check the patient for. But overall, like the demo is indicative of, like, it's not indicative of pacing, because in the demo everything is more fast paced. So the actual gameplay I think would be like less more slow paced. Um but there will be more mechanics, there will be more features, and the narrative is going to be more fleshed out.
Yeah, because it feels like very like action packed with all the tutorials in the demo, but then this kind of approach of a progressive difficulty curve. So you got like a day or two to get to like know the mechanics, so you know how to implement it, and everything is going to definitely like impact the experience. That you can see through the Discord channel, that people are just saying that, well, it's a bit overwhelming. But then as well, on the other hand, the possibility for you to actually replay a day. Are you going to keep the same kind of feature in the final release, that you can play from a specific day as well when you go to the continue?
Yes, yeah, I think the save system isn't gonna be changed a lot. I think like it is obviously a choice between like for a player to like if we limit that, it feels more like a roguelite kind of, where you have to start from the beginning or something. And like making a mistake is basically like you can't go back. So like that, it was a deliberate choice by us. Like if you feel like you need to replay a day, that's fine with us. I don't think like having a perfect day doesn't really, like, it helps with like right now it's more important than it's gonna be like in the final version, because like I said, right now the money problems are bigger. But because we're gonna balance, like we're gonna try to relax that. I think the having the day being perfect isn't, like, the sanity system is probably going to be more impactful than the money part, but the money part is also going to be like it's going to play a role. So if someone wants to do a perfect day, we want to give them that opportunity, that will stay. But it will not be necessary to have a perfect day or close to perfect to survive in the game.
Okay, that's fair enough, because that was what I was thinking. That if a person just feels that, okay, I've planned it wrong, I've spent too much time trying to learn the stuff, and I want to replay it, then it's going to really help to ease in with the possibilities, or even just to go and replay the day with the tutorial for the tool or for the mechanic that you've introduced, for them to have it a better understanding, so they can replay
What
the tutorial.
just to be clear, so like when it comes to replayability, uh so if you play from the same save like branch,
Hmm.
it kind of, there's like a pre-generated seed, and the patients and stuff are going to be same. So yes, like in that sense you kind of have an answer. to everyone already. But if you play like a different branch and you start from the beginning, like it's gonna be fully randomized. So it's not like if you play like a completely new save branch and you get to day 4, it's not like you can just memorize exact dosage you need to give to the patient to go on and play the game. So that's the way. And sometimes like some choices you make are going to impact like the endings. So that way we're gonna have like replayability in the game. Is if someone is really that into our game and wants to like experience all possible endings, they can just go back and look at it.
Okay, so you
Now and play differently to get there, basically.
So, as you said, now you said that you create a seed for the players to actually play through, so it's not like properly random. Because at first I was thinking it was completely random. So then, are you thinking about having the possibility to input a seed so you can have a similar run to the game? So this could like open the possibility for kind of speed running of the game.
We haven't thought of that, to be honest, yet, because there's so many features we still need in the game. So for example, right now we're focusing more on different, so like after the release, like I don't think we're gonna make it in time for the release. I think so currently the two issues we have is like one of the target group is people who prefer games like Strange Horticulture, like more cozy games where you don't have a time pressure
Mm-hmm.
and you can play the game like just in a chill mode. Basically, that's what we're actually calling it as well, chill mode. And then the other one is people who come from like Papers, Please kind of like games, and they are okay with time management. They do things that they do things that we can get a better balance and stuff, but they're overall okay with the pressure. They're okay with like not getting the answers right and stuff. So we are doing like two different modes, for example, for the release. If they end up being bug free, we're gonna release with two different modes where you can choose like a chill mode where it's not like we can completely take out the time mechanic out of the game because like it's already too built into it, but it's going to be much more relaxed, like less time pressure. And then the other mode where it's exactly like as it is right now, but then we're also planning like after the release, so for the next major update we're planning to do like endless mode. We're planning to do um like a mode where like as much like just earn as much money as you can, stuff like that. I have we're still discussing like exactly what kind of modes we're going to have, but that is what we're going to focus on more.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to like seed generation, I don't think it's I'm not sure if it is going to be in demand, but if enough players ask for that, I think we can probably do it. I would need to speak to my programmers, so because I'm not sure how viable that is.
Okay, yeah, sure. Because I was just thinking about this because I'm really interested like speedrunning. So like for Minecraft and other things that the world generates with a specific seed, and then people are just playing on the same thing. So then they can actually develop strategies for optimizing the way how you approach the content. So then I was thinking that if you have it from seed generation, then people can learn it and then try to be as fast as possible. And like speedrunners
We
are
do
just
So for tutorials and stuff, we wanna add into the game, basically after you pass it for the first time, like a skip tutorial kind of button,
hmm
where basically tutorial characters just don't come because, or if they come, they just tell you like narrative stuff, and they don't actually teach you the
yeah.
mechanics of the game, because you've already played through once, so why like waste your time doing it again? So that's something we're considering right now.
Okay, so now the last thing about the mechanics. Uh, how did the team approach the development of the Book of Medicine as a gameplay tool? Because like it is one of the main focal points of the game, especially like throughout the beginning as people are still learning it, and it is really well written. I've read it like calmly to see like the thought put into it, and how you came up with this idea and how you implement it. So it's like this cool to use.
I mean, that so Book of Medicine was one of the few things that like remained the same from the like beginnings of the very first ideas that we had. And that was that like, hey, you're just a doctor. People come to you. You look at your like you're the initial the one of the first ideas was like kind of that you're a phony doctor. Like you're not you just go there because like you see this like wanted poster and you want to earn money, but you're not actually a doctor, and you kind of but then we didn't like go anywhere with that like in terms of narrative. But
Mm-hmm.
the idea with the book stayed because uh, again like we need to teach the player to treat patients somehow, right? And I think the book made a lot of sense as a diary that has been there like from the previous doctors and stuff, and it would help you understand like what exactly you need to do with the patient. We definitely are inspired by like Strange Horticulture and Papers, Please. They have like similar like books in the game that teach you like how to play it. And initially, the book was actually like right in front of you. Like it was medicines that you would need to like turn to the left to interact with medicine. Uh, but initially, the book was so like that. What I mean is the book was so integral to the game. And like I said, at first, the book would actually provide you all the answers. Like you would not need to do anything. You would not need to like interact with the patient in any way. You just look at their symptoms, you identify them, you go back to the book, and you have all the answers there if you read it carefully. You do a little bit of a deduction, but not much, not as much as you do now. The book was there, but the book went through a lot of changes to arrive where it is right now. Um, and I think like the integral part of the book was also the four humors system that we ended up going with. That really helped. Like we uh, I think it's a cool like balancing system that was there like in the early modern times, like basically Roman times and like a little bit after that. But it ended up like being like part of medical system for a long time. Maybe like by 19th century, it's kind of like on the way out and not really used as much. But we 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 just like how it is like a little bit like how easy it is to gamify, and that's I think like having that design of the same four humor system also helped us with Book of Medicine and having being like this uniform and read like well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I've even seen on the Discord people were arguing like, when was the last time the four humors were used?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it actually was late 19th century. So that is like a proper point with it. So now let's go with the graphics because they are quite interesting. So could you share some insight into the art and design process, particularly in creating the game's unsettling atmosphere?
Sure. I think like my art director would probably be like a better fit to ask that question. But the uh the basic idea was first we needed to create a room, and we needed to have that room be like unsettling as like, and the way you would achieve that is through lighting. So that's what we ended up doing. We had this like cold lights and overall warm atmosphere of the room contrast with each other. So that was the main philosophy I think behind it. But like I said, like I'll try to answer the art questions as much as I can. Um, but overall that was the main idea. I think like we spent a lot of time on developing the room, on making it like look 19 like or making like basically there were several ideas we had in mind, right? One was that the game is happening on this lonely faraway island that is very hard to get to, so it needs to express that. I don't know if you've watched Klaus. It's a like 2D animated
Mm,
cartoon, I think.
yeah.
And like it is, we were heavily inspired by their depiction of the village that Klaus arrives at, and that's the thing we wanted. Like you always look at the village, like you the only thing you see is from inside the house, and we wanted the walls and everything else to kind of show how worn down it is, how unused it is, and stuff like that. And with the concept art, we show like how overall the building is, where you stay at. Um, After that, we were like, hey, what you look at? What does the player look at the most? The table, and everything is on the table, and the patient that comes in. But we also wanted to have like, and how can we add this unsettling atmosphere is through like lights. So we need like windows here. We need like one of the initial ideas was that like maybe there would be like a light source above, like a light bulb. I
Mm-hmm.
think by 19th century they would already have it in some parts of the world, and then it could flicker. But then we ended up going with a kerosene lamp that I think like suits more kind of.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because if the entire room would be lit, it wouldn't be so interesting. Because as you see the characters approaching within the shade and everything, and they are just lit up as they're next to your desk, then that gives you like this kind of who's approaching. Especially that one of the anomalies is that their head is changed, so straight away you see, oh, there's something wrong going on here. So actually now the game blends 2D characters and 3D environment. What were the biggest challenges in making those two styles combine and be cohesive?
So I'm not sure if we achieve, because we do get some reviews about like, hey, the style doesn't really match. But overall, we like the making characters 3D would have been incredibly hard for us. It would have taken a lot of resources. Like so that was one of the ideas we eliminated from the get go. Like we were actually like, because Papers, Please, Strange Horticultures are both like completely 2D. That was one of the things we were like having a debate internally, is make the game completely 2D or actually like do like a little bit of a mix. We like mixed games. Like we like this War of Mine type, like 2.5D
Mm-hmm.
environments and stuff. And I think like that makes just the game look more interesting, especially to a newer generation that has been raised on like, Roblox and Minecraft. They're
Yeah.
just too used to 3D games. Like in contrast, like a 30-year-old like me, I love playing 2D games. But overall, like I think the main reason, like in addition to like production reasons, we also went because 3D environment allows for dynamic light that is easier to do. So we ended up going with, hey, we can do like a cool 3D environment. The initial idea was to make it look more like paper, kind of like out of a storybook. But we eliminated that and went with just simple like stylized 3D style uh, that like isn't completely realistic, but also not like very cartoonish. And we added the 2D characters. The characters are actual line art. That's why like I think like people are having like, for some people it's a big deal that like they don't match, because and it's just like it's so we're a small team, and it's not like we can like we have different artists. We do have an art director, but it's very hard to keep everyone like do similar. Like it would take too much time for us to like develop a style that would fit perfectly, so we did our best with what we could. Our 2D artist is very good at like make using spine and making animations in spine. Spine is a software tool to animate like 2D sprites,
Mm-hmm.
characters in our game. So like they're really good at that, and they're really good at drawing like, and we also needed like we couldn't draw every single villager, right? That would just also take a lot of time. So we made like similar head shapes, similar body shapes, and then we would change elements so they all feel distinct. Like maybe they feel like relatives, but that's fine because it's a small village and that still makes sense. But they need to feel distinct, and that's why we went like with 2D, because like even animations wise and like just ease of production wise, that was very simple for characters to make. And like you said, with a shade like movement that would also add it, like we like um I said like the storyline, you can still have that with knock knock knock, like with the way it comes up like
Mm-hmm.
as a in a comic book. And that part also like some people like it. So I think like we I think the end result isn't exactly cohesive, but we did our best with what we could, and it ended up being like this unique, like at least it's very unique in both the way it's like lighted up and in the way the characters are presented.
Yeah, like to be sure, I really enjoy this kind of comic book style vibe with the knocking with the characters that there are parts that are cohesive with themselves, so everything considering the patients are in this kind of 2D spritey comic book like style, and then the rest of the environment is actual proper 3D models and animations. So personally I think you nailed it. I mean, you cannot
Thank you.
like satisfy everyone with any
Sure.
approach as it goes with games. All right, so now I think with the graphics you already like
Mhm.
explained everything that I wanted to ask. So let's talk a little bit about the story. Uh, how does the game narrative address the moral dilemmas associated with a medical decision making?
So that is the, like I would say, at the core of the game, because originally the idea was that, like, hey, patients come to you, you need to heal them. But what if you make mistakes? And like, do we want them to just feel sick and just go home and like come again, or do we want your actions to have like real consequences? And that's like, I think the vibe of the game is where like what we based our decision on. Hey, it's 19th century. We want to show that like your actions have actual consequence and you can kill the villagers. Obviously, if you kill too many, the villagers are gonna get pissed and the sheriff is gonna get pissed. But that's why we added like being able to kill. And I think like we ended up also making a funny animation for kill, like the killing sequence where the ghost flies out and stuff. So the like the medical decision making part comes in, hey, try to find how this person gets treated. The moral part, I think, is involved with the Lovecraftian stuff. And for some people, like I had, like when I was in Malta, there were two again teenagers, because they played the game normally and they were like, hey, can I kill patients here? And I was like, yes. And they were like, yeah, I'm gonna try to kill every single patient. So it also adds this like weird like uh evil doctor vibe that you can play as
Mm-hmm.
like a playthrough. We don't fully embrace it, to be honest. Like it's not like you can win the game as an evil doctor. You just go to jail. But it also created like this interesting dynamic, I would say, for the players to, hey, like be less serious, because that was also one of the things we wanted to go with, like be a little bit like absurdist and comedic when we can, comical, I guess. But then when the story kept developing and we went with this ritual of Craftian like narratives that we were adding, we thought like maybe we can make this a mechanic where you do need to kill certain patients. And the moral decision like the moral part is going to be from, do you kill the right, like, because you're never going to be able to know for sure if you killed the right person or if you didn't. We first added it with a character that comes in and tells you, hey, like gravedigger, that was like the more of absurdist part for us, that the gravedigger comes to you and he's like, hey man, because of how good a doctor you are, I'm getting less work, like less people are dying, like digging less graves. So just what's up with that? Like let's help each other out. And I'm gonna like you need to earn money, and I can help you earn money to get out of this village and stuff. So, but then you more you play the game, you learn that the gravedigger has actually another motive that I will not spoil again, like I said.
Yeah.
But overall, like the idea comes that some characters tell you directly to your face you need to kill people, and then you also realize by playing the game that they're evil like creatures in the village, that if you don't kill them, they're gonna multiply and they're gonna take over, and the humanity is gonna be like gone. And that was one of the Lovecraft's main fears, like the like this beings coming into this village, like the fishmen, and just taking over. And that's what we wanted to play with. And that's where you need to make decisions. And sometimes you kill the wrong people, and every time you kill the wrong people, the game makes you feel bad by both losing money and by Sharif coming and like telling you, hey, you can go to jail.
Yeah, and then especially that if a certain threshold can be met, then another like news article can be said that okay, this
Mhm.
doctor is doing malpractice or whatever. And as well, we need to take into consideration that players like to do some random stuff. So when we look like at The Sims or SimCity or Skyline. City Skylines, where you got the disasters, the possibility to actually do some weirdly ethical stuff, then we have to like embrace it that okay, not people are wanting an experience, so they want to like try to
Mhm.
break stuff. So it is a good thing that you've actually addressed this idea that you as a doctor can make mistakes that can lead to grave consequences.
Mhm.
And Dunoham offers multiple endings. Can you discuss how player choices may impact the ending that they receive?
Sure. So one of the main things for us from the get go was to make the game playable. And that's why we have like that's why you don't get bored and you like how to treat everyone. Um, and because multiple endings, like we have them because the storyline branches out. Like you have choices you can make, and the more you play, especially in the 30-day version, you will understand like how some characters are like in different factions, and you can choose a faction, or you can choose yourself, and then from there, like the story branches out, and uh, the way you play ends up like leading to different outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And like I can't talk about it too much without like giving spoilers and stuff. But overall, like the main choices you make is whose faction are you going to embrace, and like the different villagers are going to give you different quests,
Mm-hmm.
and depending on whose quests you fulfill, uh that branch you're going to lean to, and that branch is going to end up being the winning side, and your fate is going to be determined at the end, where you kind of choose I'm going with this, or I'm going with this. And that's like how you're gonna get like a beautiful artwork in the end with like and the narrator explaining how it all gonna end up.
Okay, does like leaning towards one of the branches are going to completely like negate the possibility for you to then help another faction?
So you will have a choice in the middle. So like if you lean a little bit, then yes, you can still like go towards other faction. But if you fulfill like a certain amount of quests, again, like not to spoil, I'm not going to give a
Yeah,
number,
yeah.
but let's say, yeah, like just as a hypothetical example, let's say more than three. So if you do more than three quests from one side, while ignoring the quest from the other side, and like because at certain point the one character is going to be like, hey, why are you doing their quest? Like it goes completely against, like, so you need to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do both, but at certain point, like there will be like if you do more than X amount of one side, you are going to go only their endings. That kind of means that you chose them,
Mm-hmm.
because the other characters are going to come in and tell you that like, why are you choosing them? Like we are better.
Okay, yeah, definitely. But then, just out of pure curiosity, because I've seen a couple of games that are having this kind of like leaning towards a specific like person, faction. It usually happens like in visual novels and stuff that you may actually like. Let's say there's four people that you can interact with to further their story, but then you do not accomplish the amount of quests for them to get their story further. So, as you said, the example of let's say three quests. So I will do two quests for faction one, two quests for faction two, two quests for faction three. So I'm not aligned with anyone, and the 30-day period ends. Will this as well be like one of the possibilities?
We do have neutral ending where you don't align with anyone. So kind of yes, but our game is like the do no harm is gonna force you to make a choice at certain point. Like so, even for a neutral ending, you kind of need to choose that. Like, hey, I'm not aligning myself with anyone. Yes, I've done like two quests for them, two quests for them. but I don't want to do like search quests for any of them.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of so yes, that is like what you said is a possibility, and it's a neutral ending is like a one of the good endings, I would say. So you can choose like no faction. You can choose your faction basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So,
Okay.
in what ways the nightmarish entities influence the player's experience and decision-making process?
So we developed like you'll see like when you play the 30 version, but basically there are like three main creatures: manipulators, deceivers, fishmen, and lurkers. And each one like they have like narrative meaning, but so they the manipulator like more they basically make you hallucinate, and they are the cause of like your sanity going down and stuff. You will learn why when you play the game, but there's like a little bit of deeper meaning instead of just making you like hallucinate. uh, but overall like by like through those anomalies and the sanity mechanic we talked about, they are the main way to impact the game. The fishmen, they introduced like a new mechanic of treatment, of how you need to treat patients. You can use that mechanic not just on them but on other patients as well. But also their goal is to take over the village by multiplying. That's where we like did like more Lovecraftian feeling kind of, where like this alien beings come and take over the place you're used to. Um, so you need to stop them. You need to stop them, and that's how they impact like your this is like moral decision making comes in, where you need to kill them, but like you can't really identify them exactly. So you can also treat them. You can actually make them like it's kind of like a disease in our game because it is a medical game. So it's kind of like a disease, and you can treat them, but treating them is going to cost you resources. It's going to cost you time. Killing them is going to be easier. So that's a kind of a moral decision you need. And the lurker, the final character, has to do more with resource management and also just like end game character, where if you don't manage your light source correctly, you're gonna get killed. But if you end up using like if your light source incorrect, like if you start like using light less to like defeat that creature, what's gonna happen is like you're not gonna be able to see symptoms of some of the characters, and you're gonna keep making like mistakes that way. So basically, all creatures force players to make mistakes, and it's players' choice whether to like fight that by like spending more resources and making like hasty decisions, or to embrace it and like kind of play risky.
Okay. So, with all of the questions answered, because as we were talking, you've actually like explained a lot of the ideas and how you approach this medical practices of the 19th century doctor, and the feedback that you received through both the Steam page and the forum that you had in game. So I think we may wrap up with this interview. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope that the release is going to be a blast, and you may then work on polishing this to the extent that it really deserves, because this game should be like on every wish list of a Lovecraftian fan.
Thank you very much for inviting me and for your kind words. I really do hope that we end up delivering an experience that people will like, and I do hope like it's gonna be a game that a lot Lovecraftian fans will recommend each other, because that was our main goal from the beginning, and hopefully we do achieve that at least to a certain extent.
Okay, so once again, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.